Yo, what is going on, you guys? So today I'm bringing you guys a brand new sports cards video. In today's video, I'm going to be breaking down the Fanatics impact on the hobby and what I truly believe is going to happen over the next 2 to 3 years that is going to probably change the hobby forever. Now, without further ado, we are going to hop right into this video. So if you guys are unaware, Fanatics is pretty much taking over the sports card hobby. They, of course, have big plans. They've already invested close to $10 billion to get started into this hobby. So it is not a joke for them. They're definitely about to, they have plenty of plans, I can say that much, to where the sports card hobby is likely going to be changed for good. Now, not just with, card shops, with wax, with all those things, but with the overall landscape of the hobby, I truly believe that Fanatics is going to make the hobby a lot more mainstream. The first big topic I want to touch on in this video specifically is going to be the athlete rev shares. So this is going to be an absolute game changer. We saw a bit of it happened with NBA Top Shot last year, but essentially giving an athlete, or giving pretty much all athletes, a revenue share of their sports card sales is, I believe, going to be a whole legendary kind of shift in the hobby to where athletes are really motivated to really push their sports cards. I don't believe we've seen that before, where big athletes on big stages, are really pushing their sports cards. In NBA Top Shot, when they had a rev share, we saw a lot of athletes talking about that, and we saw a big run up in prices. I do believe that when, Fanatics does come in and the athlete rev shares are starting to kind of get into place, I do believe we're going to see a big shift in consumer demand. I believe a lot of sports fans that weren't too familiar with the sports card hobby are going to be very intrigued and are going to really get it put in front of them. Like, if you know about sports, if you're, for example, a sports gambler, right? There's plenty of people. Sports gambling is one of the biggest industries that relates to sports, and sports gambling is pretty much, people betting on players. And I think sports cards are a much more economical way of betting on players. So I definitely see that happening with sports cards, to where we're getting a good amount of sports gamblers that are turning away from gambling and maybe into sports cards. But I do believe that nonetheless, athletes are going to put sports cards in front of hundreds of millions, if not billions of eyeballs. And I do believe that more international shows that I know they're planning is going to really turn, the hobby a lot more international. I know the hobby as of now is a lot based in the US, a little bit in Canada, a little bit around the world, but there's not too much of a card show scene outside of the US, and I think that's really going to change, and that's going to be a great beneficial, aspect of the hobby. So I do believe that in general, athletes pushing sports cards when they have a revenue share, there's no doubt that with the revenue share, athletes are going to be a lot more intrigued and a lot more motivated to, post about sports cards, to collect their own sports cards, to go to sports card shows. Of course, Fanatics has relationships with every single athlete on a personal level. If you guys know anything about Michael Rubin, he's hosting parties for dozens of NBA players and other celebrities. And I do think that this whole Fanatics takeover is going to be really beneficial for the prices of sports cards. I believe that some sports cards that had very high populations, such as Luka Doncic's Prism PSA 10, with the population of 20,000 plus, I do believe that in the long term, there could be the demand to meet the supply. I still wouldn't say it's the best investment, but I think that a lot of cards on that level are going to see a big price increase. And I know one thing that's going to be really interesting is how Fanatics manages overprinting. How many cards they print, how they really, I think it does depend on how mainstream they're able to take it. I do think if Fanatics is truly able, I know they have pretty much on their marketplace already, when they're selling sports memorabilia and other things, they have over 80 million sports fans who are active customers of theirs for sports memorabilia and other things. For example, jerseys, hats, all those different licenses that they have. So if they're able to market to those 80 million people successfully, 80 million sports fans who are spending money on sports memorabilia, if they're able to bring a good amount of them into sports cards, I do believe that we're really going to see a lot of prices take off. I know it could be sooner than we think. It could take a little bit longer, but I do believe that when this happens, we are going to see a run up in prices, and we could see just an overall peak interest in sports cards. We saw something pretty similar in the sneaker market, if any of you guys are familiar with that. Sneakers eventually really took off. Then they kind of crashed a little bit, where everyone was kind of questioning the value of sneakers, and Jordans, and paying such high amounts of money for these, collectibles essentially at that point, because anyone can buy sneakers for very cheap. But these specific sneakers were essentially collectibles. And we've seen over the last 10 years a steady run up in prices. So I do think we could see something similar with sports cards. Maybe not the same boom prices that we saw in 2021, but I think we're going to see more steady growth in the future with more and more people entering the hobby, with Fanatics coming in. I do believe that there's a very low chance that they would invest billions and billions of dollars into this hobby and not attempt to grow it, right? I do believe that they're going to do all they can to grow the sports card hobby. I think they've got the whole infrastructure down in terms of the athlete rev shares, the relationships with athletes, whether it's card shows, shops, better experiences in the hobby, taking out redemptions, just little things like that that really make the hobby a welcoming place. And I think that's what we really need right now. We're in a spot where I feel like we're in a transition between a boom during COVID and then Fanatics coming in. And this is like the gray area where a lot of people, I feel like, are doubting the sports card hobby. Of course, the overall recession has kind of made sports cards a smaller bubble. Not as many people want as much to do with it as they did in 2020 and 2021. But I do believe that's all going to change when Fanatics comes in, and they start to market it to their tens of millions of fans who spend money on sports memorabilia already. But not only that, just the overall athlete scene, I think, is going to be extremely healthy for the hobby. I think we're going to be seeing a lot of athletes at shows. I think we're going to be seeing a lot of sports cards in arenas. There's just so many big things that I'm very certain are going to come to the sports card hobby in the next few years. And that's why I, really recommend a lot of people, if you can stick with it through these times, and kind of wait out the waters, I think we're going to start to see a big boom in prices again. It's tough to say when, where, what, but I do know that, Fanatics coming in is going to make it more mainstream. And with the hobby more mainstream, there's going to be more buyers, which is going to be overall healthy for the hobby. So I personally, as, a sports card collector and investor, cannot wait. And I'm personally willing to stick through these times. I'm personally still buying cards right now as we speak. I do think, I did make a video, I believe a few days ago, about how I'm buying up Giannis cards, and how I believe the low populations with more people entering the hobby is going to be really healthy for prices. Of course, right now it's tough to see through everything going on, and I know there's going to be a lot of comments that are going to be doubting the overall sports card hobby, and I know I've heard that before, even before the boom. But this is personally my opinion. I just wanted to make this video because I know it's very exciting with Fanatics coming in. There are a lot of people I'm talking to who are also very excited and who are also buying up a lot of key low pop cards that, me, myself, and a lot of other people do believe, are going to see a big bounce back in prices when Fanatics does enter, when there's more buyers. But yeah, I really hope you guys did enjoy this video. We are on the road to 50,000 subscribers. So if you guys would please drop a subscribe and please like this video. But other than that, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'm out. Peace.